راجيف سينها مواطن بريطاني من أصول هندية استضاف فريق عرب لندن في بيته لإجراء مقابلة خاصة. خلال هذه المقابلة شارك تجربته الشخصية أثناء رحلته إلى فلسطين المحتلة، حيث تعرض لمعاملة قاسية وغير إنسانية من قبل قوات الاحتلال الإسرائيلي. تحدث عن تجريده من حقوقه الشخصية وإهانته بشكل متعمد، وصولاً إلى منعه من دخول الأراضي الفلسطينية بسبب دعمه الصريح للقضية الفلسطينية. ابقوا معنا لمعرفة القصة وتفاصيلها من راجيف.
Good afternoon, dear audience of Arab London. Today we are at the home of Rajiv. He's a member of the Green Party, and we're here today to speak about his unfortunate experience going to the occupied country Palestine. But before we dive into the details of what happened with him, Rajiv, thank you for being with us today. Can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Of course. Well, thank you very much for speaking with me. My name is Rajiv Sinha. I'm the director of a non-profit human rights organisation called Hindus for Human Rights UK. I'm also, as you mentioned, a member of the Green Party of England and Wales, currently standing in a local council by-election, and I stood in the general election this year as well earlier.
Can you tell me a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I was born and raised in London. I've lived in a few other countries during my life, though I lived in Russia for a year, but basically I'm British based. My family's from India and I'm Hindu, and that is the basis for my work, which is basically pushing against Hindu nationalism, Hindu supremacy, or Hindutva as we call it, which is sadly basically the ruling ideology of India today.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, tell me now, you are standing with Palestine and you are encouraging you're going into the protests and encouraging people to do so. Can you tell me where your interest came from?
I think that to stand with Palestine is to be human. It is such an undeniable situation of human rights abuses and systematic terror that Palestinians face and have been facing for decades, more than 70 years. The fact that these things are still being covered up, still being ignored, still being denied is as staggering as it is terrible. I wanted to go to Palestine to be with people there, to be with Palestinians, to stand with them in solidarity, to show them that people around the world are with them, care about them, and won't stop thinking about them. And also to do some practical actions for them as well. So the trip that I was meant to be on was doing all of those things, but also doing harder, more practical things. So they went to protests, and they did protective presence protests, for example, standing in the way of Israeli settlers and therefore hopefully preventing some settler violence. Obviously, settlers don't always respond to international presence. In fact, sometimes presence makes them more aggravated and can make things worse, but I still think it's important to show up for people who are being so ludicrously, so violently, so systematically oppressed.
Choosing to go into Palestine after what happening now and after 7th of October, it showed a lot of courage from yourself, so that's really great. Can you tell me what happened? And from the start, you went to Palestine through Jordan. To start from here, why did you decide to go through Jordan, not through the Heathrow Airport?
So, to give a bit of context, the trip, this was a multi-faith human rights delegation organised principally by two organisations, one called Rabbis for Ceasefire, which is fairly self-explanatory. The other called Sabil, which is a Palestinian ecumenical Christian liberation theology group. So the two of those organizations were the ones that organized the trip, and my organization, Hindus for Human Rights, was invited to be the Hindu component of that multi-faith delegation. Jews, Muslims, Christians, us two Hindus, and one Buddhist. So beautiful, diverse trip. To go on to your question, so we were all recommended, this may or may not have been correct or accurate at the time. We were told that the easiest way to get in terms of Israeli security would be through the Hussein Bridge or King Hussein or Allenby Bridge border crossing facility from Al-Karameh, Jordan, basically through into the West Bank, as opposed to flying into Tel Aviv. I clearly did not find that the security there was lenient, but it's worth pointing out that the entirety of the delegation, except for me, did get through. Anyway, so that's the way that we chose.
So let's speak about more details. How many checkpoints you faced there, and how were you treated through that journey?
So we drove from Madaba. So we flew into Amman, stayed there one night. Next morning early, we drove to Madaba, and then the next day we went from there to the border crossing, the border facility. So we first had to go through a Jordanian checkpoint, which was very easy, airport style scans of luggage and stuff, passport and immigration, but pretty much just a stamp and then you're put through. Then you drive from that's actually before the King Hussein Bridge facility. Then you drive to that facility, and then in one building you have 3 different security sections, Jordanian, Israeli, then Palestinian. We were told that the Jordanian and the Palestinian sections would be easy and no issues and just pretty much stamps and then you go through. And we were told that the Israeli section in the middle would be the one which would potentially have issues and which would be stricter. So we all got through the Jordanian section. We all got through the security of the Israeli section, but then that is when the issue for me began. So at the Israeli section, we all got through security. We all had our bags and things scanned, and that was all fine. But there were 2 Palestinian members of our delegation, both of whom are actually American citizens with American passports. Hiba Qasem and Tamara Taha. Hima had never been to Palestine before, ever. So it was a really special, as well as, a special moment, as well as a terrifying moment. She knew that these things are not easy. But so the whole delegation, you know, we really, even after just one night, we formed a sort of a bond. And so we were all feeling very excited for Hiba to have this experience of going back to her own homeland. So a few of us were taking pictures, and that was basically what caused the issue. My colleague was taking pictures, another person from the delegation was taking pictures. I was taking pictures of Hiba, you know, almost to say, look, she made it through. I was the one of the 3 people that got caught taking a picture. Female security guard came up to me and said, delete that picture, please. When you delete a picture on your phone, it swipes onto the previous picture. So then she saw that I had taken pictures documenting our drive from Madaba to the border crossing, which I don't think should cause any issue because it's a very known public route. There's nothing secret about that. She then started speaking in Hebrew, so I couldn't understand, into a walkie-talkie on her left shoulder, which was the first point at which I started thinking, okay, this could start.
How did you feel at that moment?
Am I allowed to? Never mind. Well, I thought, oh crap. I remember that was the exact, in a slightly harsher word, that was what came to my mind. And then she referred me to, she took my phone, by the way. So then I was passed over to 2 male security guards. She gave my phone to them, and they did a little good cop, bad cop routine. Mind you, the good cop was not exactly nice, but nice relative to the other one. And they started just going through my phone. And then they all of a sudden didn't care about the fact that I had taken those pictures inside the facility. What they then cared about was the fact that there were pictures of me holding Palestinian flags at Palestine marches and protests and rallies. And they're saying, what is this? You're anti-Israel? You're pro-Palestine? By the way, I've never in my life said that I'm anti-Israel. I don't define in those terms. I certainly call myself pro-Palestinian. I certainly call myself anti-Zionist, but I'm not anti-Israel. I don't think it's a helpful phrase. That bad cop, shall we say, then went away for a little bit, came back out and said, my source tells me you're anti-Israel. And I had in my mind, almost from TV or films, that he's just making this up. I said, I'm not, no. and then he said, well, I don't know, my source is very reliable. Are you saying he's lying? And I said, sorry, I don't know what to tell you, but I've never ever said that in my life, and I wouldn't call myself anti-Israel. And then it just kept getting worse from there. So then I kept getting moved from room to room. I was put in about 4 different rooms for questioning by different people. So I was questioned by 4 or 5 different people in 4 or 5 different rooms. In between each of those rounds, I was taken back to the main detention bit where I was with all my other fellow detainees.
How many people were there in total?
So it seems to me that I had the longest and harshest experience on that particular day. Because whenever I'd come back from one of my rounds of questioning, it'd be a fresh round of people, a new round of people. So I'd say there were about, throughout my time, 5...
I mean with your group, the group that you traveled with?
Oh, my delegation? 34 people in total, including
people,
me.
And you were the only one who experienced that?
Yeah, so I was eventually declared a public security threat.
Oh, wow.
Whilst the other 33 people were let through, which is absolutely ludicrous, right? I mean, if they made me tell them who the organisers of the trip were, and they looked up the organisers, they looked up other people's social media, they looked up my colleague from Hindus for Human Rights in the US, who in the past has been even more vocal a critic of the Israeli state than I have. So my point is that they know that all those people have the same views and the same intentions for the trip as I do and did. Yet I'm declared a public security threat and they're not. It's ludicrous. So it leads me to conclude that there's no practical or strategic thinking in their behaviour. It's just unhinged behaviour.
And in terms of background of the group, were you all mixed between British and American, or how was it?
Everyone was an American citizen except for me and one other person who lives in the UK. That person is called Mong Zaimi. He's a really amazing, wonderful human being. He's a lifelong human rights activist, a Burmese freedom fighter, and was just recently, about a month ago, nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. So he lives here in the UK as well. So apart from us two, everyone, all the other 32 American citizens.
How long did the integration take?
My whole experience, I was detained for about 5 hours. Maybe half of that was waiting, scared, and not knowing what's going to happen. Very scary, and I wasn't allowed to go to the bathroom for about 3 hours. When I was eventually allowed to go to the bathroom, that let's call him the bad cop that I mentioned earlier, said, okay, fine, go to the loo. And then almost immediately, as soon as I entered the bathroom, I heard some shouting, Red G from far away. And that's not exactly my name, so I didn't think it was about me at first. Then it kept getting closer until the point maybe he checked my passport, so he got my name correct, and it was in the bathroom. He was screaming my name, Rajiv, get out now! And I was like, I'm sorry, okay, I'm coming. And he's banging on the door, going, I said now! And so I had to come out apologizing. And then when we came out of the bathroom, he and a bunch of people that he knew just all started laughing.
That's an extreme violation of human rights you've been facing, and it's really difficult to go through it and talk about it.
It was. It's been an ordeal, and it has been something for me to process, but I have to highlight and point out that for me this experience is not about me. It's about Palestinians. And my experience was bad, but it was a tiny glimpse. It's given me a tiny insight into the daily, quote unquote, ordinary life of Palestinians, which is shocking. And the Palestinians in detention with me showed me the most lovely friendliness and kindness. They all started talking to me, and at first I was a bit. When I first got there, I was just scared, so I kind of didn't feel like talking, so I was giving short answers. But they broke me down almost, you can say, with their friendliness, and then we just started speaking. And I have the most heartwarming and also heartbreaking stories from Palestinians that I can share as well at some point.
Did you feel any differences in the way they were treating other people, Palestinians, within the same room?
Everyone was treated roughly the same. As I said, on that particular day, my questioning rounds were longer than anyone else's. In fact, I think I was the only person who'd taken into different rooms to be questioned. Everyone else was just told to sit there while their documents were analysed in a different room. Then the guards would come out and say to them, you're let through or you're not let through. I have many stories of the interactions I had. I mean, one of the times that I got the angriest in my whole 5 hours was there was a family in detention with me. Mother, father, and 2 children, young children, 7, 8, under 10. And they had been there an hour, maybe 2 hours. And they looked angry, annoyed, exhausted.
Of course, yeah.
But then one of the Israeli soldiers came up, and I say soldiers specifically because there was security guards. I never dealt with a soldier. I dealt with security guards and then the immigration department people. But then this one was a soldier. He was actually in military uniform, and he came up to them, and they were all 4 of them still sitting down, and he was a tall, huge guy, very intimidating, and just like towered over them. And I just remember seeing their expressions completely change. From angry, upset, annoyed, tired to polite, welcoming, and like gracious. Because how dare you show anger to your oppressor? And it continues. Not only that, so that happened, which made me so angry. And then the soldier handed them back their documents and said something like, "Okay, fine, you've been approved. You've been given an allowance to go in for 3 months."
Okay.
And the mother said, "Oh, thank you so much, thank you." And I was furious. They're like begging and saying thank you for being allowed into your own homeland and being graciously given 3 months in your own homeland. What a disgrace.
Absolutely.
And this is the system, right? These aren't one-offs, and in my experience, this is not a fringe event. This is the system. And in a fascist state, if you're a member of the security apparatus, you're incentivized to be as cruel and inhumane as possible. Because then you're working towards your national security, you're being a good citizen, and it's also career development.
I'm so happy you've seen this yourself, and you are able, thank God you're safe here, and you're able to tell other people what happened.
Me too. That's the
we
most
want to
important.
spread the word as much as we can, and say the reality of what the occupation doing there. Tell me what happened later. You were forced to sign something without even reading it?
Maybe it's worth mentioning just before that so they confiscated all my possessions. They took my suitcase. I mean, they took me through to the luggage area and made me identify my suitcase. They had my backpack, and they took my phone. They made me unlock it and took it away. So they had my phone for hours and laptop for hours. And every now and then, every hour or so, they would come back out with my phone and say, "Put your password in," which suggests that they're doing, one of those special functions on your phone, which requires you to put your password in. I mean, who knows what they did? I've had advice from many people, both human rights people and cybersecurity people, to do certain things, get new devices. I would like to get a professional help to ascertain whether my phone has been tampered with or not, because that information I think would be great to publicize, right? I'd love to be able to say for sure the Israeli state is surveilling a Green Party candidate, a human, whatever. So who knows what they did with my devices? And I basically since then have had to assume that they have been monitoring everything that I'm doing. I should really have gotten new devices already by now. It's actually just proven a bit more difficult. Anyway, you mentioned
the
signature. So after around 5 hours, eventually a new person came in and brought me into a new room, the 5th and final room, which was in the immigration department section of the facility. And he was one of the most polite people, because I guess he belonged to the immigration department, not security. He said, you've been refused entry. the official final decision has been made. Sign this. And I wasn't given an opportunity to read the document. He just said, sign here now. So I signed it. I then had my pictures taken of me. I had my fingerprints taken, which felt like a real violation. That was one of the moments where I felt most violated. I don't know what right the Israeli state has to my biodata, my biometrics.
Understand,
Sorry.
Just to and then conclude the story, would you repeat this experience? I know you haven't been allowed to go in. Would you go through that again and try to enter Palestine?
Absolutely.
You would?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not confident I would be allowed in if it's still Israel controlling the border. But they wouldn't deter me from trying. No.
Again. Yeah, that's the most important thing.
In fact, I considered trying again the next day. Because I was removed back to Jordan. So, I had some space and time to think. And I spoke with the delegation who had gotten through. By the way, my phone didn't work for the next 3 hours, but I'll get into that in a second. But after, let's say, 6 hours, my phone was back up and running after they potentially blocked it. And I managed to speak with the delegation and with my colleague from my organization, Sunita Vishwanath. And they were keen for me to try again, and I considered it, but ultimately thought, there's actually no point. Tomorrow the same people will be there. It's just happened. I'm on file. There's no point. I want to go. I want to go so badly. I want to be with the people there, and as I said earlier, show them that the world cares, or that so many people in the world care. I'm not confident I'll get in though. Israel is a pretty tight state. I have these considerations with what I work on in my main job, in India. India is a fascist state at the moment, just like Israel is. However, India is a little bit less organized, a little bit more chaotic than Israel is, and human rights people and journalists who are theoretically blacklisted do get through every now and then. With Israel, I don't think that's really possible.
Mr. Rajiv, I would like to thank you very much for having us in your home today and for talking about this story in details and sharing it with us, even it must be difficult for you. So thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you so much for speaking and for your attention.
أعزائي المشاهدين، اليوم كانت حلقة مميزة جدا، وقصة الأستاذ راجيف قصة لازم تنتشر، كان لازم نحكي فيها ليعرف العالم كيف الاحتلال بيتعامل مع الفلسطينية ومع الناس اللي بيسافروا أو بيجربوا يدخلوا فلسطين أو حتى يقفوا مع فلسطين. فقصة راجيف اليوم بتبين إنه مش الإسرائيليين ما بيعطوا أي حق لأي إنسان. وشكرا للاستماع.